Please welcome the Claire Tao Professor of Political Science at Barnard College, Alexander Cooley, and the Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia, His Excellency, Mr. Dimitar Kovachevski.
Good afternoon and welcome. I am Alexander Cooley, Professor of Political Science and Vice Provost at Barnard College and a former director of the Harriman Institute at Columbia University. It is my enormous pleasure to welcome you to today's World Leaders Forum event. Thank you to those of you who are joining us here in this flagship Low Library building, as well as a warm welcome for the hundreds of you who are watching this on live stream and the World Leaders Forum YouTube channel. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the co-sponsors of this event, Columbia's Center on Global Economic Governance at the School of International and Public Affairs, and the Harriman Institute for the Study of Russia, Eurasia, and Eastern Europe. Each fall, about this time, late in September, we look forward to the meeting of the UN General Assembly, which brings heads of state and government from around the world to New York, and fortunately for us, to our campus. Already, we've heard from Frans Timmermans, European Commission Executive Vice President for the European Green Deal, and just earlier today from Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, leader of Democratic Belarus. Our guest this afternoon is His Excellency Mr. Dimitar Kovachevski, Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia. Prime Minister Kovachevski was born in Kumanovo, near the capital city of Skopje. Having completed his doctorate degree in economics at the University of Montenegro and executive education at Harvard Business School, his illustrious professional career includes leadership roles in telecommunications and high-tech companies and industries and work on numerous international and domestic projects. He is also well acquainted with the world of academia, having taught at New York University in Skopje and University American College, Skopje. Prime Minister Kovachevski's political career began after the 2020 parliamentary elections in North Macedonia, when he was appointed Deputy Minister of Finance in Zoran Zaev's second government. In January of this year, after 2 months of political crisis, North Macedonia's parliament elected him as Prime Minister of a Social Democratic-led government. He has noted that the key priorities of his government include strengthening North Macedonia's economy and facilitating North Macedonia's inclusion into the European Union. Prime Minister Kovachevski has come to Columbia today to speak about the current geopolitical situation, including the impact that Russia's unprovoked aggression against Ukraine has had on the Western Balkans, North Macedonia's contribution to further stabilization and development of the Western Balkans, and the 30th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Declaration on Minorities' Rights. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency, the Prime Minister, to the podium.
So thank you very much for this opportunity to be guest at the Columbia University. To be frank, I'm feeling like at home because due to the energy crisis, we do not have air conditioning. So this is like really the conditions, unair conditioned, which we have also in Skopje. So distinguished professors, dear students, dear diplomats, and dear friends, this is really a sincere and great honor to be guest this afternoon here. And as an academician, it is tremendous privilege for me to be at the Columbia University, one of the leading universities and one of the most prominent academic institutions in the world. Moreover, as a Prime Minister of the government of North Macedonia, I feel very grateful to be present here, as this also is important for our country to talk about our political, our democratic, and our economic model in front of renewed professors and in front of future leaders, as you are here, students at the Columbia University. When we discussed with my advisors the concept about this, let's say, 10-15 minutes introductory lecture, then I told them, don't talk about the past, let's talk about what we achieved and where we want to go forward from here. This is why at the opening of my part, I would like to reiterate the most important evolutionary positions related to recent past of North Macedonia. So just a month ago, we celebrated 31 years of our independence, sovereignty, and development as an independent state after the dissolution and breakup of the former Socialist Federative Republic of Yugoslavia. North Macedonia acquired its independence peacefully, pursuing its specific policy of preserving the country's stability to finding solutions through effective diplomatic efforts. So if you want to find a place on earth where diplomatic efforts and soft diplomacy works, then this is North Macedonia. And all of the agreements which we have made internally in the country and externally with the neighbors are actually functioning and they are sustainable. And this has given the possibility to the country to progress to the achievement of its strategic goals. In the broader context, my country is really a rare example on the Balkans, where I do not think that I should remind you about all the violence, all the pressures, all the economic pressures, and the rule of the stronger on the Balkans, and especially in the countries of former Yugoslavia, which actually was not the case in North Macedonia. So we, in 1991, peacefully let's say, went out of Yugoslavia, and this was done thanks to the leadership which we had at that time, because it was not easy to practically negotiate with the regime of Milosevic at that time, a peaceful dissolution, but in our case it was successful. And other things, all coalition governments in the country always have had included a political party of the Albanian minority which we have in our country. And this is important because the Albanian minority is the biggest minority in the country. And also political parties from other minorities are also parts of the government. So if we see my government composition at this moment, so I have partners from ethnic Albanian parties, Bosniak parties, Serb parties, Roma parties, and this actually gives, by my opinion, bigger creativity, and it gives strength to the government, because on one table you have all the important opinions for, I am always saying, emotional issues on the table. And then there is one motto which I always follow: the easiest way to manage is when you have all people with the same level of information. Then the conflicts are practically not existing. We also, during this 31 period of time, we have made the decision and developed a recognized democratic model, which is practically part of our constitution, with a functional multi-ethnic democracy, a recognized and appreciated system of Barnard principle in voting, where not only the majority is counted, but also the majority of the smaller ethnical communities which are represented in the parliament when the issues are affecting them. So then we are using the Barnard principle of majority in the parliament. And such policies and mechanisms are realistically functioning, and they produce results being founded on the overall national policy, active political dialogue, and extensive diplomatic efforts. So a significant aspect in developing this system is the signing of the Ohrid Framework Agreement, being a unique and successful concept of setting identity conflicts. So you see now, at this moment, we have an identity conflict which is happening in Ukraine. We had an identity conflict which was a smaller scale, which happened in North Macedonia, at that time, Macedonia. And actually, this agreement gave the possibility to the country to build this multi-ethnic society where every citizen feels the country as a place where he can grow personally and professionally in his life and career. European experiences show that this type of conflicts are left as frozen conflicts. So we can only see the Greek-Turkish conflict, then the Corsica-France conflict, then the Basque issue in Spain. So they are more or less frozen. In North Macedonia, this agreement practically gave us the possibility to have solved this problem or challenge which the country had. It should also be underlined that these successful agreements and treaties reached, 2 or 3 of them are ownership of North Macedonia. So not only the Ohrid Framework Agreement, but also the Prespa Agreement, and also the Treaty of Friendship with Bulgaria. So when you see the country, then there is one internal agreement and 2 external, or let's say neighborly agreements, which define the internal and the foreign policy of the country, and they are the basis for the achievement of the strategic goals. So with Greece, we managed to find a solution for the name issue of the country, the constitutional name of the country, at the same time preserving the identity and the language of the citizens. And this gave us the possibility to become full flagship member of the NATO alliance. And how important it is to be member of NATO today in Europe, especially on the southeast, I should not explain you. The second agreement with Bulgaria actually was again a very emotional, because usually I divide negotiations in 2 major types. One are rational and one are emotional. With the Greek negotiations, I was not directly part of them. Let's say the Greek side was more on a rational level negotiating, but we were negotiating on a more emotional level. But with the Bulgarian negotiations, which I was practically leading, the 2 parties had an emotional approach to the negotiations, and it was much harder to find the solution. Together with the help of the European Council, France, Germany, and the United States, which were always part of the facilitation of these processes, then we managed to find the right solution for the future. Related to the war in Ukraine, we consider this war as a threat to the democratic world, since the war is a classical example of resolving an identity conflict through violence and war, and not through a peaceful means. The Russian influence in the region would destabilize the well-functioning system in my country, but also systems of countries in the entire Balkans. We had a little bit of discussion with your professors, and actually the Russian influence has always been directed towards the Slavic countries, as there it's easier because of the language similarity, and because of historical engagements to have the influence. But the excellent thing is that after these important decisions which we made, after these successful arrangements which we have with our neighbors and internally, North Macedonia at this moment is the cornerstone of the stability on the Balkans. So maybe a small country, but a cornerstone of the stability on the Balkans, and an example for the region, but I would say wider, how with soft diplomacy and how with the power of negotiations and diplomacy we can solve historical, but also we can solve issues which are related to identity problems. Related to the economy of the country, you have to be aware that all the countries part of Yugoslavia are countries of discontinuity. Because if you take the American economy, if you take the, let's say, French economy, the German economy had a discontinuity in 1943, 1940, actually 1944, before the end of the war. The other economies are economies of continuity. We are of discontinuity because at 1990 we had to change the economic system. So changing the political system from socialism to capitalism actually provoked a change of the economic system. Because if you have studies in these systems and they were the self-governance and every worker owned the factory and so on, so actually we had to change to private ownership. Every nationalization is a painful process, but also every privatization is a painful process. So as bad the nationalization is, at the end the results showed that all the privatizations were as bad as the nationalizations. Second, discontinuity were the markets. So our economy was functioning for the markets of former Yugoslavia and for the clearing market with the Soviet Union and Warsaw Agreement countries. So with the dissolution of the Warsaw Agreement and with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, these clearing and barter arrangement markets were lost. There is one fact that the level of employment in North Macedonia reached the level of employment in 1990 last year. So that many people lost their jobs because of closing of the factories. Plus these factories were not working for the European markets. They didn't have the standards and they didn't have the ecological and any other certificates which were needed. And that is why many heavy industry and black energy industry and many chemical industry facilities had to be shut down from that reason. But when we see what is in front of us, then there are, I would get it shorter, there are some micro and micro priorities for the future. Number one is the rule of law. Why rule of law? Because all the countries which went through the process of transition, of forming new political parties, are very prone to corruption. Because the political parties think that when they win the elections, they win the system. So this has to be changed. We can proudly say that on one side, we have built a functional system of multicultural democracy, and we are an example of it. But on the other side, we have to build a system that can fight the corruption and improve the rule of law. And this is valid for all the Balkan countries. When a country is undergoing a transition, it is relatively easier to achieve democratic stability. And rather than establish an efficient rule of law system, exactly due to the reasons which I stated. But also, even in this situation, we have managed to harmonize 45% of our legislation with the EU acquis. And just in July, after 17 years of waiting and solving these, I would say, regional geostrategic issues with Greece and with Bulgaria, we started the negotiations finally with the European Union. But also, even harmonizing the legislation with the EU acquis also remains the problems with the implementation of the adopted laws and with the political culture of corruption. How to solve it? First, political will, and second, a lot of help from our strategic partners. So you should know that besides being a candidate country which negotiates now with the European Union, we are a country which has a strategic partnership agreement with the United States. And this is since 2008, so let's say one of the most important agreements which we have. And this is not only in the field of military and democracy building capacities in the country cooperation, but it is also in the field of economy, culture, and other issues which are in fields which are important for the development of the country. We we have, so let's say the government which I am leading and the parliamentary majority is fully in line with the NATO approach towards the Ukrainian war, but also with the European Union foreign policy. So we actually aligned our foreign policy on the first day of the attack of Russia on Ukraine, and we publicly stated this, and also we provided little and no little aid to Ukraine, also publicly stating this. Because, you know, on the government session I said to the members of the government, we have always been on the right side of history, and now we will again be on the right side of history. So a price of gas and the price of electricity cannot put you on the wrong side of history, because this will pass, and the history is always judged from a time perspective of 50 to 100 years. So I think that we made a really justified decision. In terms of economy, now there is this challenge that we need to diversify our energy sources. So we are completely dependent on Russian gas, and most of Europe is. So in Europe, there are three groups of countries. Ones which are fully reliant on Russian gas. Second group, and this is when you go to the west and to the southwest, a group which is, let's say, less dependent on Russian gas, and then when you go to Spain, Portugal, then there is no dependency on Russian gas. But the biggest economies are towards the east and towards the center of Europe. So if I may put it shortly, and then with this I will practically finish, that so far we had an infrastructure where the gas was flowing east to the west. And this infrastructure was built in the last 50 years. Now, this infrastructure, based on the decision of the president of Russia to go into war with Europe, practically will have to be abandoned, and we need to build a new infrastructure. So we will have the gas flowing from south to the north and from west to the east. And you see, this is the paradox. And this is the paradox of this war in economic terms. To abandon a built infrastructure towards Europe, so take the Russian logic. They have infrastructure to sell the Russian gas in Europe. They are saying we go in war with Europe, we abandon this infrastructure, so Europe goes now into heavy investments to build new infrastructure, and also Russia will have to go into new investments in order to build infrastructure towards Pakistan, India, China, because there is no infrastructure in terms of pipelines to the east. So in this regard, we will continue to be without air conditioning in Skopje, but only for the next 30 days, and then as a prime minister I have to find a way to heat the capital and to find electricity for the schools, for the hospitals, and for all the most important functions of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, very much indeed for those detailed and sweeping comments. And you mentioned your personal decisions and reactions to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. How do you view the last few months? How has Russian aggression affected the regional politics in the Western Balkans? Now, you mentioned you were willing to adopt sanctions aligning yourself with EU policy. Russia has designated you an unfriendly country. What do you see the impact on the orientation of the region going forward?
Oh, this is a good question. And I would say that different countries are in different positions. And this position depends on several factors. Factor number one is the public opinion. This is how politicians see it. So when I take the public opinion in North Macedonia, then the public opinion is in favor of the decisions which we are making. Because we have always had, as a country, as Macedonians, the best relations with the United States. So even if you see the first missionaries coming to the Balkans, they were coming to to the eastern part of North Macedonia. And there are even movies, books for this. So actually, we always had this relation. Second, we always wanted to build a republican model of governing the country. And then what is the best example? Then this is the United States. So in this regard, we are very close. But let's see the others. Albania, same like North Macedonia. Bulgaria was under influence by Russia for 50 years. Let's say the center of the electronic industry was in Sofia, the best scientists and everything. But I must say that the official policy of the Bulgarian political elite is on the right side. So the former prime minister, then the president of the country, I would say that they made the right decisions. Probably the toughest is Serbia and Bosnia. It's not easy for Serbia, and I'm very openly saying this, to make all the decisions on full alignment with the EU foreign policy, even that they are asked for. And then if you see the statements of the president of Serbia, then you will see the same thing, which I will say. Because they are the, so probably Serbia is the second country where the president of Russia is the most popular. And then it's not easy to make decisions in this kind of environment. And then Bosnia is similar, at least in one part, because then you know Bosnia is 49%, 51%. The Dayton Agreement was practically a territorial agreement. It was not a country system functioning. So, if you leave a space, somebody else will fill it in. This is in politics and in geostrategy. So, the United States and European Union have to be daily present in these countries. Because the moment when you are not present, the moment when you leave space in media, in investments, in financing, in democracy building capacities, then somebody else will fill it in. We do not have any contract with companies from the East, let's say with China or with Russia, so we do not have any, at least in the mandate of my government. There was one government previously which was making these kind of deals. I don't like these deals. Why? Because when you get these cheaper credits, then you usually import the influence. And you do not, and then if you are a member of NATO, and your strategic goal is to become member of the European Union, you do not want this political influence to have in the country, because it will deteriorate the system of values and the orientation of the citizens towards achievement of the strategic goals. Because if you do not have the support of the citizens, on a long run, then the policies will not be successful. So I've been in a position to pass a deal with the European Union now, where there was a huge hysteria built by Russian bots and by Russian investments. You know, we are quite sure that there was a money inflow from Russia or Russia-related countries in North Macedonia, but also in Bulgaria, also in other countries, just to tailor the public opinion with hysteria against accession towards the European Union and against full alignment with the NATO activities in terms of support of the people of Ukraine. So this is how I would see the influence which we have and the regional approach country by country.
Excellent. Before I ask the next question, I would just like to invite those of you who are interested in asking the Prime Minister a question to line up behind the microphones, and we'll get to you soon. As with other countries in your region, one of the toughest challenges is addressing the brain drain among young people and the perception that more opportunities lie outside of the country rather than within it. How do you view this issue, and what policies have you proposed to address it?
Yes, this is a problem for all the Balkan countries, but it's also a problem for all the Eastern European countries, and I am saying this because of the discontinuity. This discontinuity closed workplaces. It decreased the living standard. It decreased at one point the GDP. it decreased and it lost the values in the society. And you know that values are driving always principles and the behavior of people. So these were the problems. What we have done many strategies, but I am not a big lover of strategies because people usually want to talk about strategy and not to work. So I like strategy implementations. I like activities which are done. You know, I had one very interesting experience. There was a United States agency in the beginning of the independence of North Macedonia, and they were making a strategy for 3 years for water supply in one remote area. And then 3 years consultants, you know, and everything. And I said, guys, why the hell you don't dig one well so people can have water here? 3 years you are making a strategy. You know? So make water for the people. And that's why we have implemented a lot of actions to support employment of young people, to support self-employment of young people, and numerous tax exemptions in order to attract them to work not only in the businesses who somebody else would create, but also to create their business. That's number one. Number two, we implemented a successful FDI policy, FDI attraction policy. So at this moment we have, let's say, more than 60,000 workplaces out of 600,000 which are created by foreign companies, and these are blue chip corporations, and they are in the country. Also, due to the lower level of salaries in the country, which is normal in Eastern Europe, a lot of software programming companies are coming in the country. So now my vision has always been, you know, with 1.8 million people, with 200 kilometers of diameter in the country, you cannot be the biggest exporter of energy, you cannot be the biggest exporter of food, but you can be the biggest exporter, let's say, of software, artificial intelligence, and so on. And I am the most happy. I was this June when I saw the enrollment on the universities. The universities in IT and programming enrolled alone more students than all the universities together, all the other faculties together. So this means that there is a natural push on the market to demand these IT professionals, but also this gives the possibility, when you have more, to have new companies which are coming in the country. Another thing is, I don't know if you have heard about the initiative Open Balkan. Open Balkan is an organic initiative of Serbia, Albania, and North Macedonia. And it is not a political alliance, but it is an economic alliance, and it is actually, in essence, built on the 4 freedoms of Europe. So free movement of goods, capital, services, and people. Because when you see Europe, if you go out of Serbia on Horgosh towards Hungary, then you don't have borders up to Scandinavia. If you go at Šid in Croatia, then you don't have borders up to Portugal. If you go south, on every 100 kilometers you have border between Serbia and North Macedonia. And this is torture for the people, torture for the economy, for the transporters and logistics. And then if you dig inside, then you see that on these borders are passing goods between these 3 countries which have 0 custom rates. So 0. So you have border in order to check something which has 0 import or export custom. So what are these borders creating? Only corruption, nothing else. And that's why I am a proponent of Balkan without borders. This is a stupidity which we do not need. This is idiotic thing which we have. I mean, if you come, a tourist that goes from Serbia to Greece, he will drive 4 hours and he will be at the borders for another 4 hours. Just somebody to put a stamp in his passport. It was easier because before we made the Open Balkan, a green lane for the trucks between North Macedonia and Serbia and Albania, to take goods from Albania through Croatia to Norway, then 20 kilometers, so this is 15 miles from Albania to North Macedonia. Because they will be stuck on the border. Phytosanitary inspections, licenses here, licenses there, and this is terrible. It's easier that you go and employ yourself in the United States than you employ yourself in Serbia. And this is actually what we want to do on the Balkans.
Excellent. So let's turn to some questions now. Just a reminder, please introduce yourself, your name, your school, and please ask a concise question so we can include as many as possible in the program today. And just a reminder, we are indeed on the record and being recorded. So let's start over here.
First of all, thank you, Prime Minister, for talking to us this afternoon. My name is Josh Williard, and I'm studying Sustainability Management at the Climate School. My question is, you talked about the dangers of relying on cheap Russian gas, and I think the Ukraine war has underlined that for a lot of Balkan states. And I'm curious if there's talks about diversifying energy supply beyond just west to east or south to north in terms of oil, but into, say, different renewable sources? And if so, what is the strategy, I guess? Yeah,
this is the great question, and it is something with which I'm waking up, and then the whole day goes with this. Two types of diversification. One, energy source, another energens source. So energy is that we already started strategic projects in the country of building photovoltaics. So we want to have, so let's say, the capacity which we need in the country, a base capacity, is 1.5 gigawatts of base load energy. At this moment, we are missing 30%. So this would be like 500 gigawatts. This we want to fill in with photovoltaics and with wind turbine energy. And we are making contracts, strategic contracts, only with German, American, and French companies. And they go straightly to the parliament because of the strategic orientation of the country. That's number one. But then these sources, which I said, will not give you a base load energy. The base load comes usually from a 24/7, actually always come from a 24/7 source. That's why we are discussing cogenerative power plants with gas to be built on the territory of North Macedonia, and a hydropower plant also to be built with these countries' strategic partners. And also I'm always including Greece in our plans. Why? Because when you build base energy, then you don't just build it for one country, because we are small countries. They should be regional projects. And that's why we are teaming up with Greece, with Albania, in order to build these big, let's say, half gigawatt base energy facilities. And very soon you will see, if you follow European and especially Central and Eastern Europe politics and economy, that we will be announcing projects together with Prime Minister Mitsotakis and with Prime Minister, some future Prime Minister of Bulgaria, because they are in elections in this regard. Second, in terms of gas, we do not want to rely only on Russian gas. That's why we already booked capacities in the Alexandropoli port in Greece, where there will be an LNG terminal. And also we applied to buy 10% of the shares as a country. And we already started a market test for a new pipeline, which will go south to the north, from the Alexandropoli port to Thessaloniki, and then from Thessaloniki to North Macedonia, and then most probably Kosovo will be connected, Serbia, Romania will be connected on this pipeline, which will supply us with LNG, with liquid gas. And also on this interconnector, we'll be able to be connected the TAP, the transatlantic pipeline, through which we can get the gas from Azerbaijan. Because the Azerbaijani gas is always cheaper and it's always more reliable. So practically this is the diversification in electricity, so which source we are producing, and in terms of energens. And then you will probably ask me a question about battery storage systems. I would say that this is still a fiction for our region. Then there is one problem. I would not rely too much on China, because China now is in a problem with the semiconductor. I have worked in the semiconductor industry, and I have worked in the energy industry, and also worked in the medical industry. So I changed like 3 industries during my professional career, which is 23 years. And the problem now will be in China with the semiconductor. And you will see how Huawei will run into problems and other producers. And the problem with the battery storage systems is that there is a lot of active equipment which relies on semiconductors, especially the software which is running the whole system. And this Europe is still not at the level of the Chinese companies. That's, I'm saying now, the base energy should come from water and from gas, and then second phase to come from battery storages when we'll build capacity to build them in Europe.
Thank you.
Great answer. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Martin Ristovsky. I'm from North Macedonia myself, and I'm an undergraduate student here at Columbia College. You mentioned the issue of brain drain, and earlier at the beginning of your talk, you touched upon the benefits of clearing up information asymmetry. Currently, there is, I believe, an excess of talent among young students in Macedonian schools, and I was wondering what was being done to connect them to opportunities both within the country and abroad in terms of higher education. And if you could expand a bit on what the government's future policies on that look like.
Well, to be honest, I have my personal experience with brain draining and coming back, because I finished high school in the United States. And that was at the time when there was not even a Macedonian passport. I went with a Yugoslavian passport, and then I had all the possibilities to stay in the United States. All the possibilities, because my country was in war, and then there were numerous possibilities that you can stay in the States. As a refugee, as somebody who is staying in a family, so numerous. But then I don't know why I decided to go back home. Because I said, you know, if we all leave, then who is going to build this country to become better? And I did a lot of personal efforts in order to implement new projects, because I was all my life working in private businesses. So if you see, digital TV is with my signature in the telco industries. And then the All IP network again with my signature. And then the first photovoltaics with my signature. So there is always a personal drive. And then there is the country policy. And this is $1 million question, what the country can do. So the country has to provide a rule of law. It has to provide equal possibility for everyone. Because when there is a corruption in the system, that not all the people have equal opportunities. And you know, when you see the countries on the Balkans, then I have one saying which I am using, but more people are starting to repeat it. You know, this region used to be, now it's a little bit changing, that the honest people are regarded as naive, and the crooks are regarded as creative. So when we exterminate this approach, then I think that it will be easier for everyone to come back. So you are finishing at one of the best universities in the world. I would say that your place is back in the country. But then probably yourself, you will say, you know what, I finished Columbia. What is the average salary in North Macedonia? The average salary is $500, and this is it, $550. With Columbia, you will be able to earn much, much more, right? So what we have to do is to attract investors which will be able to have a business that can employ persons like you. And this is what I was talking. New industries, support for FDIs, support for Macedonian investors in order to improve the businesses which are employing people.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi. Thank you for being here, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm Ivan Mitevsky, PhD student here in the Applied Math Department. I did finish school in North Macedonia and then came here for school, and I'm still here. I was going to have a question about brain drain because 20 to 25% of my high school class is outside of Macedonia. One of the best students that were in the class are pretty much outside, and no one has any intention to go back. But I'm going to ask a more specific question related to the bureaucracy in Macedonia. When I go back and I have to renew my passport or my personal identification card, the bureaucracy is huge. It's like you see, it's a drag to the system. So I just wonder, do you have any strategy or what kind of policies you're implementing to reduce that bureaucracy? I think it'll be better for businesses and people in general, and maybe even reduce corruption.
Thank you.
There is one word for this: digitalization. Digitalization is the keyword. In the country, the level of digitalization is very low. And this is valid for all the countries. Why? Because we have to build everything from scratches. You know, you are saying bureaucracy. This is the public administration. The problem is that we didn't inherit any public administration in 1991. We had to build it from scratches. Here at this university, the public administration, the first public administrator here, who works in the administration, was employed in which year? When was this university created?
A while ago.
So a while ago.
Catch you on the exact
Where you
vehicle.
take your passport was
Over
created
200.
in 1991. The passport was since 1992, I guess. So whether we work on digitalization, yes. Whom we work together? Mainly with Switzerland, United States, and with the European Union, dominantly. When you implement digitalization, then you decrease human contact. When human contact is decreased, immediately corruption is decreased, because the low-level corruption is done on exactly this type of counters where you are taking your passport when you go back home. So digitalization is the keyword. I cannot finish it alone because the mandate is not unlimited, but then we are making all the necessary strategies that every other government will continue the implementation of digitalization. And I will only give you one example. When I worked in the Ministry of Finance, actually we passed a bill in the country, a law, in which there is a new organic budget law for budgeting, but also in the law we implemented, together with the World Bank, stipulation as a must that there will be an integrated system for budgeting for the whole public institutions, SAP alike. So whether SLP will like to build it, I don't know. It's a part of public tendering procedure, but at the end there will be an ERP for the first time after 30 years, which will enable one-place budgeting for all the administration in the country. And this is the beginning, because when you have the core machine, then you can plug in, like if somebody speaks German here, like in a Steckerleister, all the other softwares which will easier the life of people like you when you come back home.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, next question.
Hello, my name is Alexandre. I hold a master's degree from the European Institute here. My question is quite simple. What does EU accession mean for you and for your country, both economically and politically? And maybe in the distant future, what would the euro mean? That's obviously more in the future, but yes.
I will give you a very simple answer, a very short answer, which I gave 2 or 3 weeks ago on our national TV. European Union and the United States of America are the only two communities of states, this is her answer, zajednici na državi, the Macedonians will understand, in which there is democracy and the right of critical thinking for every person, economic prosperity, and social justice. These are the benefits of the European Union. And the answer to the previous two questions, because I knew that this question will come, the answer to the brain drain is this. When we will make a country of democracy and the right of critical thinking, of economic prosperity and of social justice, then people will start to come in the region. Otherwise, people will go out of the region. Because Bulgaria is a member of the European Union, but still you have a Bulgarian professor here. Romania is a member of the European Union. Poland is a member of the European Union. Let's see the numbers of the brain drain. I don't think they are any different than North Macedonia or Serbia or Albania. Any different. they are quite the same. Why? Because the level of economic prosperity has still not been reached. And we have to reach it. How do we reach it? The economies were growing 2% year over year. With this, we will never reach it. Our economies have to grow 6% year over year in order to reach this level. That's the answer. How you grow economy 6%? Then you have to include businesses and infrastructure projects which are growing 6% year over year. This is the name of the game. The GDP is simple subtraction of everything what was produced in the country. If you are producing a product with a margin of 1%, your economy cannot grow 6%, unfortunately. So we have to start to build iPhones and Volkswagens and everything in order to grow the country.
Yeah. Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you very much for speaking with us. My name is Leonard Moxley. I'm studying energy and environment at SEPA, and I wanted to ask, what is North Macedonia doing to attract foreign investment, and specifically in terms of environmental, social governance, so environmental, renewable energy, those kinds of things? What is North Macedonia doing to attract, invest in renewable energy and those resources?
Yeah. So there are two types of FDI attraction. One is in the let's say traditional industries, the automotive mainly, then the software, and we have one model of free technological industrial zones. So a standard one, tax holiday, support for investors for training of employees and so on. So actually, if there are economies here, there is this famous hourly tariff. Practically, we are competing with Romania, with Serbia, with Bulgaria, who can produce, actually who can offer conditions that the hour of production work is cheaper in the country than in the neighborhood. So this is. But now what I'm noticing, that when you build the basic industry, so in terms of automotive, then there are more and more, let's say, highly skilled employees. So now if you see the new BMW, this new BMW comes with this gear shift with Swarovski crystal. You probably have seen how it looks like. This Swarovski crystal is made in North Macedonia. And I know what is the production price and what is the sales price. You cannot imagine the margin. It's the highest margin I have seen in my life, you know. It's in 1,000,000%. But the thing is that it is made there. In 1990, this was not possible, but now it is possible. For the renewable, we introduced a model where we made a public announcement that we offered on a public land investors to come and to build wind power plant, photovoltaic power plants, then cogenerative plant. I'm talking plant, not in plural, and hydro dam. And then when you go to my introduction and to one of the previous questions, because we want to build the base energy with the late two, and we want to be the renewable, the peak power, with the first two. And we already have 4 investors which have already applied. Number 1, German VPD, huge consortium in wind. Number 2, Akuo France, huge consortium in agrivoltaic. And number 3, in the water, PPC Greece. And number 4, in cogenerative power plant, Mytilineos Greece. So this will be the 4 investments which we are working on. And they should give a base load energy and the peak energy which can also work for the region and can make the country out of a net energy importer, a net energy exporter. So let's say this is my vision, how I see the energy structure of the country within the next 10 years.
Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Next question here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Bekim Brook. I'm a student of political science at the School of General Studies. I'm originally from Kukos, Albania, which is one of the borderlands with North Macedonia and Kosovo. And you just mentioned that the Open Balkans initiative is not a political initiative, but an economic one. But just like 2 months ago, your invitation to join the summit in Ohrid was rejected by the Prime Minister of Kosovo. And my question to you is, was rejected mainly for political reasons? And my question to you is that, do you see it as an obstacle to the enlargement of the initiative and to the future of the initiative, the fact that countries like Kosovo wouldn't be considered on equal terms as compared to Serbia?
So, if you recall, and if you have seen my statement in Thessaloniki on the Southeastern European Summit, I invited in the Open Balkan Initiative not only Kosovo, I invited Italy, Greece, and Turkey. On the summit in Belgrade, which was just recently, came the Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu of Turkey, came the Foreign Minister of Hungary, Siarto, and the Italian Foreign Minister couldn't come. Kosovo, I am always inviting. And I am inviting also when I have meetings with the Prime Minister Kurti and with President Osmani. Why? Because I have learned that a conflict, and we all know that there is an open challenge between Serbia and Kosovo. There needs to be found a solution. And if there is somebody who knows that there has to be a diplomatic solution, it's not Macedonia. I mean, this is what I talked about in the introduction. So we have our ambassador here. He's the finest professor at our law university. He can tell you everything about this. He is in Europe. You can take the book of James Perdue. It's a great book. And then you can read everything from Dayton to the Ohrid Framework Agreement. But the thing is, you know, we are a country of Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa, I was recently reading a book which was done by one of her missionaries, which was going with her together in India and in the other countries. There is this very important statement. A family that dines together stays together. So we have to sit at the same table. Because if we don't sit on the same table, we do not communicate. If you do not communicate, you cannot resolve problems. So that's why Kosovo, again, I'm sending an invitation to be on the table. For Kosovo, also, I am asking the European Union to cut the visa regime and to have visa liberalization. Because Kosovo is less than 1/4 of Munich in Germany. Why should these people have visas to enter the European Union? And you said you are from Kukës. Kukës is on the border between Kosovo and Albania, and it's a beautiful place, hiding in the mountains. Yeah.
Thank you. So we are almost out of time, but we do have time for one final question, so please.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for coming here to speak to us today. My name is Michaela, and I'm from Slovakia, and I'm a master's student of international affairs. And I would like to ask you about your opinion on the future of European integration, because even though Germany is right now pushing for European integration, then we could see Mr. Macron proposing a two-tier model of European integration, promoting rather political integration of the Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership countries. So I would like to ask you, what's your opinion about the speed and nature of the European integration within the upcoming 10 years, whether you think that the process will be much quicker than it was up till now? Thank you.
Well, European Union saw its mistake. And it's good when people learn from their mistakes. The, let's say, lack of energy, the lack of strategic focus produced a decreased credibility of the European Union in the Western Balkans. So, if I may compare, the worst in terms of credibility institution in North Macedonia is the judicial system with 8% credibility. That's the exact percentage of the credibility of the European Union in North Macedonia. Why? Because they were simply not present. They were busy with themselves. You know, at one point, they were coming and they were saying they are pity about us. To be honest, When I went there in February, I was pity because of them, when I saw them. They were all into trouble without any strategic focus. And finally now they said, okay, we have to start the negotiations, with North Macedonia, with Albania, let's focus on this one. And this is how we rolled it on. And then we needed leadership in the country. So if you have seen the pictures from Sofia, from Skopje, then you will see what we went through in order to pass this deal because of the influence of third-party countries which do not want to see this region integrated in the European Union. About the community proposed by President Macron, I am positive. Why I am positive? Because they are on the table. So this is strategic focus of the European Union, which was lacking. Now on the table will be Great Britain, which left European Union. On the table will be Switzerland, which is not in the European Union. On the table will be Western Balkans, and plus Moldova, Georgia, probably Ukraine, and so on. You need to have them on the table. So please tell to your friend from Cooks that Kosovo should be part of the Open Balkan, because then you are at the table, then you can communicate and share. So what will be the outcome? It will be now up to us what we will ask for and what are the possibilities of the European Union. But this can only fasten the full membership integration within the European Union. These are two separated processes. The membership in European Union is an administrative, very painful process and operation to be done. So I have now a very big mambo-jumbo negotiation team. These guys, 30 years they are studying about European Union, they know everything, and they are in Brussels for 10 days, including weekend. So what they do during the weekend, I don't know, but we pay the hotels. I hope they will finish the negotiation faster. But I see that we can finish the screening with the European Union as a country in 14 months. And then if everything goes by the predictions which we had when we were making our negotiation structure, I'm quite confident that by 2030, North Macedonia can become a full-fledged member of the European Union. And this will be great for the region. And then everybody can come back and to work in North Macedonia.
Prime Minister, thank you for your expertise, your forward-looking thoughts, and we certainly wish you the best of luck in this the number of tasks that you've laid out today, and please come back and visit us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation.